Hi everybody, it's great to see you again here in the Cyber Week 2020. In spite of the difficult circumstances, we're still doing it because cyber is here, Cyber Week is always here, and we continue as normal as it can get, as we can get. And speaking of these difficult times, one cannot ignore the pandemic, the world pandemic, but it's not just a biological horrible pandemic, it's even more a cyber pandemic. And what I'm going to talk in a few short minutes is how Israel and the Israeli National Cyber Directorate deals with these both pandemics converge together, and it doesn't seem it's going to go away anytime sooner. So, first of all, how we work today. Not just the government, I think everyone is adapting to work from home, and not just work from home. We do schooling at home, we do everything that we used to do outdoors, now indoors at home, and that's a major problem in the cyber perspectives, because now we see that the attack surface goes dramatically, enormously everywhere. People, organizations, individuals, government, agencies, all of us work and begin to work remotely. Remotely meaning more opportunities for the bad guys, for the attackers to hit us, to try to penetrate, and many times, unfortunately, to succeed in penetrating into the organizations, into the fortresses that we managed to build in the normal times. But we have solutions. And speaking of the threat, we see the graphs, we see the numbers growing, in not just in the corona times specifically, but as we go more and more digital, we see more exploits, more vulnerabilities that comes up from software. And software is something that done by people, meaning that it's exposed to flaws, to errors, to human errors, and this goes by dozens. The graphs are going up and raising up also in the number and quality and danger of the vulnerabilities and exploits that we discover on a daily basis. And this is just examples from the last couple of weeks. So, what are we need to do in this era? Now, just remember, when we talk about cyber weapons, unlike biological phenomena like the COVID-19, we talk about a phenomena that was not there in the history of human being. And this is the first time that the dangerous weapon of cyber is coming up, meaning that in the ancient history, we had very easy weapons like spearheads, like arrows, like knives. These weapons can kill, but the damage is pretty minor. It's not a severe damage in a global scale. Then, in the 40s of the last century, we discovered the nuclear. The nuclear weapons, well, they are devastating. They can cause catastrophes, hundreds of thousands of millions of casualties. But it's very difficult to build such, unlike the spearheads. Now, the cyber weapon is something in between. It's relatively easy to develop. At the end or the beginning, it's just a code. It's characters like letters, like numbers, but the damage they can cause is devastating as nuclear weapons, even more. You can melt down a nuclear power plant with this code, with these numbers and letters. So bearing that in mind, that the first time the easiest way to build a weapon, like spearheads, now can be used to cause the most catastrophic damage like nuclear power, nuclear weapons. So how we deal with that? We have some lesson learned in the past few months since we, in Israel and all around the world, we needed to dive into this very difficult situation. So first lesson is understanding that pandemic is a pandemic. And when we talk about cyber pandemic and biological pandemic, well, basically they behave very, very similar. When we talk about the R, the infection rate, when we talk about the cutting the infecting chains, and investigation of understanding where the infection began, etc., we see the similarities. But the big difference is, unlike the COVID-19, which we fight globally against a virus that we now begin to understand how it works, when in cyber we fight against the most dangerous animal on the planet. It's the human beings, it's people, and they behave much more dangerous than the biological virus. And when we talk about the damage, well, these are some of the numbers that we simulated even before the COVID-19 of a catastrophic, a plague scenario, a cyber scenario in Israel. You see the numbers, you see the overall impact of such a plague, such a pandemic, in this case epidemic in Israel, that a cyber can cause. And you see the numbers financially, but it's much more than financial, much more than the impact of the economy. It can be casualties and people, normal life, etc. But still, we have a gap, both in the biological pandemic and in the cyber pandemic, of understanding, people understanding the full scale, the full gravity of that risk. And as you see in this picture, we still meet with deniers or ignorance in both of the pandemics, also in cyber. And we need to close this gap as soon as possible. And when we talk about understanding, these are examples coming from the biological pandemic, how we meet with the COVID-19. Well, the same goes for cyber. When we talk about protecting, and the INCD is responsible for the national protection of Israeli cyber arena, we talk not just protecting off, but protecting from one infecting the other. And we need to see all the time to make sure that no infected agency, organization, company, the individual goes viral and infects the others. So this is a difficult mission to the government to make sure we not just protecting, but protecting from. But we have some solutions, and as we see, data is the basic of all the solutions. And like in the COVID-19, as you see, the World Health Organizations and any national health agency collects more and more data to deal with that. We see also that the same goes with cyber. And we need to collect this data to find these weak signals and gather them and fuse them into a picture that we can we can operate upon. And in this manner, well, we are just issuing on a weekly, almost a daily basis, a new information, a new awareness campaigns, and new things to the public. These are Hebrew examples, but you see some of the translations about Zoom, about any other applications that now are more in use because of the COVID-19 and others. And we're about to launch next week the Israeli Cyber Awareness Week, which is in Hebrew says, all you need is just a little more strengthening. And we have elaboration of take a minute to strengthen your password, or take a minute to do, and here's a big thing. The vaccine in cyber is much cheaper and easier than the cure, unlike the COVID-19, unfortunately. But you see, the vaccine can basically comprise of 5 very easy steps to strengthen your password, to update your software. Don't press phishing, don't press suspicious links, etc. It's all here. Just follow them and you minimize your attack surface and your risk by dozens or 80 more percent. So another thing, coming to wrapping it up, is strong partnerships. And fortunately, we're very glad to have 2 major partnerships just coming in the past few weeks and months. First with our new friends, the United Arab Emirates, and coming also with the Kingdom of Bahrain. We're working also with them against mutual threats. Some of the threats you can see here. In fact, we have already got to be celebs in some Iranian journals or newspapers reporting our new friendship, but it won't frighten us. We're working together to hold all the bad guys, to make sure that no threats are coming to both our nations and to the rest of us. And speaking of the Israeli advantages, we cannot ignore, of course, the strong and a great Israeli cyber industry. And here are some of the numbers just from the first half of this year. You see the numbers, the growing numbers of exits, more than double than last year completely. We're talking only the first half. We can talk about almost 30%, 29% of the global investments in cyber coming to Israel's cyber industry. That's a big show of faith, of understanding the strength. And we offer that alongside with our friendship and partnership to all of you, all of the like-minded friends and partners to stand strong and hold back the threats, not only in the COVID-19, but in cybersecurity as well. Thank you very much, and please stay safe.